Today's guest is Megan Leatherman, who is the founder of A Wild New Work. And she's an ecological career development agency based in the Pacific Northwest. As a career coach, mother, writer, podcast host, and amateur ecologist, Megan has helped thousands of professionals reconnect to their strength and to what deeply matters to them. She has a master's degree in conflict resolution, a background in HR, and believes that our work can be a spiritual practice. So, Megan, thank you very much for being on. How are you doing today?
Good, thanks. Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. And even just from reading your bio, it seems like you have a very interesting kind of diverse background with regards to how you're doing what you're doing. So I'd love for you to just break down for us that story and how you got to where you're at.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, it sort of starts with my first kind of real kind of corporate job in human resources after grad school. I burnt out pretty quickly. It was a fast-paced sort of East Coast startup, and I was working a lot and trying to, sort of climb that ladder, prove myself in that environment. And it just really came into conflict with my sort of more sensitive introversion and it's kind of intuitive nature. So I ended up moving back here to Portland, Oregon, where I live now, and was contracting with them and stayed on doing HR consulting and took on some other clients and just sort of accidentally got into entrepreneurship. It wasn't my plan, but none of the HR jobs I was applying for were working out or felt like a good fit. And I noticed how great it felt to work on my own timeline and my own space and just how much more grounded my nervous system felt. So that was about 8 years ago. And since then, it's just been a sort of organic process of moving from helping, and supporting employees in an organization to wanting to see what it's like to support people in their working lives, but outside of the organizational context. And I find that I'm a lot happier being outside of that environment. So yeah, I coach people one-on-one. I've got some other ways that I share my thoughts and ideas, and it's a feels like a very sort of creative mix of writing and podcasting and supporting people one-on-one who are moving through a transition in their own careers, as well as sort of stewarding a community. But it's all sort of in parallel to or informed by nature and the natural world. That's sort of the language that makes the most sense to me. So I guess that's a little bit of how it's come together.
Yeah, it's a very interesting like the transition from like corporate to doing something on your own. I mean, that comes up on the podcast quite a bit. But I'm actually just curious from kind of the outside looking in, the sentiment you had mentioned of like the ecological world or like the natural world, informing what it is that you're doing. So I'd love for you to just break that down for us a bit further.
Well, some of it is like very tangible. Like I sort of run my business and, offer content that's very tied to the seasons and the way that like, what the natural world is doing in the summer and what that has to teach us about what our bodies and what our spirits sort of want to attend to at this time of year and the way to sort of live in alignment with that, but also as a model for sort of vocational growth, that there are times in our lives when, like the summer, we do feel really clear and there's a lot of light and it's easy to sort of see the fruits of our labor. But then we naturally need to go through periods of, the fall and the winter when things are a lot darker, mysterious, and things need to sort of settle and integrate. So it's kind of the framework for how I run my business, but also what I guide clients through. And just, it's been so helpful for me to remember that I am part of the natural world, that even though I'm on this screen and on this computer, all my working days, like I still am in this body that evolved to pay attention to how much light there is in the day and what the air feels like and sort of the rhythms of those natural cycles. So it's like with most people who run their own businesses, it's for me and it's for the people I serve. And it's just sort of the way that I see the world.
Absolutely. And I mean, I know even in coaching, right? Like, what season are you going through, or like that often comes up as far as like a theme with regards to exploring exactly what's going on with the client. So yeah, I totally can understand and relate to that. So in that space, and as a segue, what season is your business in right now?
Mm. I think I'm sort of at the end of a summer. It's been really active and busy, and there's been some good growth, but I'm feeling like um, I'm not enjoying it as much as I could, and feeling like just that sense of wanting to sort of reevaluate and grow into a new cycle. And so, yeah, I'd say I'm entering sort of a fall period where I'm wanting to let go of a few things and see what else is ready to emerge, what feels a little bit easier and more sustainable.
Got it. So can you tell me a bit more about that? Because I have an idea of what you might mean by that, but I'd like to know it from your words.
Yeah, I mean, I am limited in how much I can work because of kids and childcare, and that's extra limited right now for the rest of this summer. And so I'm sort of bumping up against the ceiling of like how many clients I can take one-on-one. I don't have room for more. Um, I'm also sort of wondering how this community that I run wants to evolve, and that's a paid community. So that can easily grow without having to do more work, but I haven't made the time or space to really nurture that and support it growing. And then I also have a class that I'm running that's more of a group offering that is great. It just is not something that I can run all the time. So it feels like I've got some constraints and, you know, also need and want to be earning more. And so I'm not totally sure like how to do that within the time I have and without running myself ragged.
Got it. So it kind of sounds like there's this balance or like opposing forces where like I'm capped with regards to my capacity, but then I also want more as far as impact and as far as revenue. So like the two needs seem to be at odds. So would that be accurate?
Yeah. Mhm.
Okay, perfect. And being a coach yourself, okay, what would you say to somebody who's in the same situation?
Mhm. Mm. Probably that little changes go a long way. So you don't have to wait to feel like you have this whole perfect plan, that you can just start like making little tweaks now, and that adds up to a lot of momentum. Um, Also that it's okay, to just sort of, I think I need to remind myself that it's okay to kind of float and not have everything be feeling perfect for a few months until my kids, are in school and in a different rhythm when there's a little more space. Um, I also really resonated with an idea that you shared about this need to sort of reevaluate like or update who we are, like the beliefs I have about who I am and how I could actually be someone who could step into a different level of ease and profitability without having to work more or work harder. And so I'm trying also, I think there's some internal work that needs to happen as, have a coincidence for today, in terms of like updating what I think is possible for myself, and believing that there are people who, work 3 days a week and make the money that they need and feel like they're having a great impact, and that that could be true for me too.
Got it. So with regards to that, like updating what I think is possible for myself, right? Like you've clearly thought about this a few times, and it sounds to me like the awareness right now is shifting towards, well, I'm noticing the results that I'm getting. I notice this isn't sustainable or not in line with my desire. There's a part of me that also believes something better could be created and is out there, but it doesn't really feel like that is, and I don't know what the right word for you is, but is it achievable? Is it achievable for me? What's kind of the feeling around this sentiment of updating what is possible for myself?
Yeah, it feels hard. Like I don't really know how to get there. It feels like, yeah, I think it's just this sense that it's like this mysterious thing that I don't know how to do. And I don't feel like I know how to start really, or I haven't maybe found like it's really helpful for me sometimes to pull in like images or something that like my mind can sort of hold on to as like an example or like an image of me in that state, and like so that I can tune into like how I want to feel or what to cultivate to get there. And I don't feel clear about that, like who is the version of me that is in that. And so I don't feel like I have anything to hold on to really to or know where to start.
Got it. So it's like, who is this version of me that is living this, whatever you want to call it, like an up-leveled existence, or that's just it's an easier flow to life than I'm experiencing right now.
Yeah.
Okay,
Mhm.
got it. So when you find yourself asking that question, what kind of patterns do you find yourself in day to day?
Like my imagined self or right now?
More right now, because like your imagined self right now, there's a sense of what that version of Megan can be, right? But it's not really tangible. It's not really real. It's not really clear. It's like you said, it's a little bit mysterious. So it doesn't feel real in the sense that I can actually step into that individual. So it's like the mystery is coming from this question of like, oh, what is this up leveled version of me that I can't seem to just embody and feel? So likely there is going to be things that you're doing day to day right now that tend to be repetitive. So when you are in this kind of limbo state, what do you tend to experience day to day?
Mm. Well, it's still a lot of like doing. I mean, I don't know if I feel like a lot of what I'm doing is totally legit and valid and like has to get done, but I struggle to like make space for the like ease and reflection that I want to have in the future. So I stay busy and yeah, maybe that's it. That like the busyness creates like the mental fog or doesn't feel, easy or like what I'm aiming for. So I'm just sort of creating that on a daily basis. And it feels like this kind of um, storm, like dust tornado or something where I'm just in and I can't see how to get to the next thing.
Right. Like the busyness creates the fog. And then they're like, well, I can't see anything because of the fog. Like, would that be
Hmm.
an accurate? Okay. Got it.
Yeah.
And if you were to just stop being busy, then fill in the blank.
Hmm. Well, I did just take a lot of space the last 2 weeks and it was clarifying, but it's not like I got any like huge, answers or like, here it is. Um, and so my first thought is like, well, that sounds boring. I don't want to just be on pause forever. Part of me really likes being busy. Um, and so I feel like I haven't, or I'm struggling to find like a balance where I can be in my life and active and in that sense where there's a still enough like flow and ease. I feel like I sort of go from one extreme to the other. Um, and so yeah, if I just stopped doing, I I would probably, feel good on some level, but also feel like I'm still just sort of hanging in limbo. Um, and maybe that's not helpful, but that's what comes to mind.
Got it. So on the one hand, I don't want to be busy, but on the other hand, I get very uncomfortable if I'm idle.
Yeah,
Okay. Got it. And what comes up for you internally when I reflect that back?
I feel like the truth is somewhere in the middle of those things. But yeah, and I don't really identify as someone who's like a hustle and grind kind of person. But I do try to fit a lot into my limited working time. And um, I know that it's like costing me a lot, that I don't feel like I have the space to like reflect and ideate that I really benefit from. So I don't want to be idle, but I don't want to be like unnecessarily busy. I want like the space to, you know, think and meditate and like take care of myself. So maybe it's like my conception of idle is different.
Got it. So I guess if your time wasn't spent being busy, but it was spent, contemplating and kind of tuning in and really getting back in touch with yourself, that would be okay. But if it was just like twiddling your thumbs, then that would be a no-go. Like, would that be accurate?
Yeah, that feels right.
Okay, perfect. Um, if there was a safety or a comfort or a benefit to you being busy, what do you think it might be?
There's part of me that feels like proud, like look how much I'm doing. Part of me is bought into the belief that that's what creates value. That's something I've had to sort of unlearn this year, is that people don't really need necessarily need just more content or more information or more blog posts, that there's something about slowing down enough to either just hold space or like offer things that are maybe more thoughtful. So yeah, there's probably been a sense of protection around like validating what I'm doing, that I'm busy, so it must be valuable. I'm busy, so people like must want to work with me. They see how hard I'm working. Those two things come to mind.
So a lot of the busyness has actually been kind of like a proving energy, like busy equals proof that I'm good.
I think busy equals proof that I'm serious and a hard worker and maybe important.
Okay. So that's pretty significant. Like being
Mhm.
busy also means being important. So there's a level of significance I get from being busy. So does that
Mhm.
ring true?
Yeah.
And if you stop being busy, then you'd also stop being important.
Mhm. Yeah.
And how does that land?
Yeah, I that feels like it strikes a chord.
And what do you feel when you're saying it strikes a chord?
It's like this pit in my stomach, like I would almost like I would disappear. Um,
Mm. So
mhm,
if I wasn't busy, I wouldn't be important, but worse yet, I would disappear.
mhm.
Okay. And what comes up for you when I share that?
It's like, well, shit. I don't know what to do with that, but yeah, I can see it.
So the sentiment of stopping being busy, is it about productivity and the task that you're doing, or is it really about your identity, sense of self, and sense of significance?
Yeah, I feel like I'm sort of creating my sense of self through the activity. So then it's like, well, who am I creating with less of that or without that? Um, because I think I do need a balance. Like I do think I need to be in the world and creating and working, and that is a necessary part of like how our egos develop. But I can see how it's like clicked into something that's not really helpful, where I'm like overcompensating as a means to try to feel valid and important and meaningful. Um, yeah.
Got it. So first and foremost, good awareness around all of that. Given that whole piece of awareness, is that what actually gets people to buy?
No.
Okay. So what's coming up for you as you let the laugh release?
I see how, like, if you believe that to be important, you have to be busy, that creates a lot of work and a pretty heavy load. Um, and not like no guaranteed results, and that it's not that's not even how I think of like drawing in the right people for me and my business. So it's not even aligned with how I want people to come in or like what I know they need. It's just been an old like way for me to feel good or protected or safe. But I can see how it's sort of in contrast to how people come in and how I want them to feel when they come in.
Yeah. And would it resonate with you that that pattern is really more about you and filling your own inner gaps with busyness than it is about serving and being of service to clients and or prospects?
Totally.
Okay. And if we were to switch gears a little bit, what is your sense of passion and connectedness to your work?
It's so entwined with me. I mean, I'm just trying to pull apart like the parts that are helpful and not, you know, one of the things that I support people in doing, which is exactly like what I try to do for myself, is to really live into the fullness of who they are and their purpose and what their soul, came to this earth to offer and do. And so that feels that's like very resonant for me, and also like the core thing that I want to offer to people who I work with. So I can feel it. It's a very like embodied thing, but maybe it's been covered over, like blocked by this sense of like, well, then that means I have to be busy and talking about it all the time and, writing about it and just, yeah, just working really too much probably.
And does that leave you in a passionate, enthusiastic state to both serve and show up authentically?
No, I feel the depletion. Um, and I feel like the passion plus this level of busyness can, if it goes too far in the past, it's become this sense of like resentment that, I care about this so deeply. I'm so busy. Like, why aren't more people here or engaging? And that's really toxic for me.
Yeah, so great awareness, and I appreciate you sharing that, because there almost seems like, if we follow the just simple arc of what you shared with us today, like you got into this for very highly aligned reasons. Like there was a part of me that was really passionate and knew that we wanted to merge with something that wanted to express in this way through entrepreneurship, right? But in that same vein, it got distorted by this other self that, like, I have to have importance by being busy, otherwise I disappear. And it seems like that's now seeped into, not just covered up, but almost like distorted the passion, because you resent it. Like, I keep doing the thing that I'm doing, and I part of me knows I'm supposed to be here, but I hate the fact that I'm supposed to be here because it's feeling and looking like it's looking right now. So how does that land for you?
Yeah, I wouldn't say I hate being here, but it definitely feels unsustainable. And I can see, I can't see like how to get to where I want to go next, but I can see that like this isn't how I want to get to where I want to go next. And when I think about like, you know, earning more and working with more people, I do immediately have this feeling or thought that like it's going to mean being even busier or working more. And that feels really unappealing. So then I don't really do anything because it's like, well, that doesn't feel great either. Um, so yeah, I think there is this internal conflict. And I'm also like a product of our culture of, capitalism and all the like productivity garbage out there. Um, and so it's hard to like work through that and see like what would it be like to be doing meaningful work that maybe wasn't as visible or like wasn't or like what is it to do the work and disappear or like not have to be in front all the time or like listen to and seemingly important. Does that even answer your question? I don't remember where.
That's okay. It does, and I think it opens up some doors for a few other things. So one of the things that was coming up for me when you were sharing this is like, even just as a thought experiment, because you keep coming back to this whole thing of like, okay, well, I want to earn more, but I have this fear because I'm so at capacity right now. And yes, part of it is working through the stories, the narratives, and the aspects of you that find this significance and importance in being busy. But then the other part is also, if I let that go, I don't actually know who I am, right? Like kind of what we started with, which is updating what is actually possible for me, like what's possible for me if I let go of this part of my identity that's just about being busy.
Mhm.
So just as a simple thought experiment, like if you double your prices right now, what comes up for you?
I feel excited, like great. I can not be busier and double my revenue.
Okay. Excitement's obviously good. Uh,
Yeah.
seems to me like this is something you have thought of before. So why don't you do it?
It's the same. It's this thing about like, I mean, it's all the same stuff that comes up for a lot of people, I think, like accessibility. How could I charge that much? I couldn't even afford that, if I wanted to work with someone at those rates. Um, just just a lot of ideas and stories about it not being okay.
Got it. So basically, it goes back to, well, what's possible for myself,
Hmm.
right? Brings me back to, well, the status quo makes the most sense, but that's where I'm in this limbo state. Therefore, like repeat everything that's going
Yeah.
on.
Hmm.
Okay. So do you see kind of how the cyclical nature of like the thoughts, the resentment and the emotions that I feel around being busy continue to create these day-to-day patterns of like continuing the pride, reinforcing the fact that there's value in being busy, if I could just do it harder, etc. Like it just creating the cyclical hamster wheel of kind of staying the same. Like how
Hmm.
does that land for you?
Yeah. Yep. It makes sense. I feel like it's something that I've done sort of even as I've grown in my business. It's never been super easy or graceful. It's like I repeat the pattern until I just absolutely can't anymore, and then raise my prices or change what I do. But I'd like to be able to do that before I get to like a crisis point.
Got it. So the impetus for change is a crisis point.
Yeah, or
It's not
I've like reached the limit. Yeah.
right. So I've gotten to the threshold of what I can possibly endure in this
Hmm.
state. That's the impetus for change. And I don't really do it proactively. Like unless
Hmm.
circumstances dictate that I have to do it, I don't do it proactively.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. So got it. Um, would you say that that also refers back to, well, I don't really know what's possible. I don't know if I can do this. What would it look like? Like that sort of sentiment. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. And if you were to zoom back out now, kind of look at the grand landscape of the situation, the constraints on the business, the limited growth, how does this affect you day to day? Like, well, what's the consequences of this for you day to day?
I mean, I feel I'm tired, you know. I think like 2+ years of the pandemic, I had a child in the pandemic. I'm running this business. Yeah, I'm tired. It doesn't feel good to feel trapped in a certain state of things, you know. That takes a lot of energy to feel like I just have to maintain this thing that isn't feeling great, you know. It's not, maybe not horrible, but it's not great. Um, so yeah, I feel drained, and I feel like it cuts me off from the maybe teaching or writing that feels like true, but is a little deeper, and I just haven't had the space or time or energy to get into. So yeah, it's draining, and keeps me separated, I feel like, from something else.
When you say something else, like, what do you mean?
Just this, I guess, part of my like vision for the future, this other source of like, you know, inspiration, or I feel like there's this sort of deep well of things that I need to be or want to be thinking or writing or talking about that I just haven't had time to explore really. I'm just in maintenance mode.
Got it. So maintaining this hamster wheel of like always working at capacity, always being busy, always stuck at the same ceiling, that's keeping me separated from really what it sounds like from the outside looking in, like my deeper truths, the deeper expression of what it is that I actually want, the inspiration that got me into moving into this space. Like, would that be accurate?
Hmm.
Got it. And because our businesses are so personal to us, like, is there anybody else that this affects?
Mm. I mean, it definitely impacts the way I show up for my kids and spouse, and what I feel like I can offer to, you know, friends or other family. Yeah, I take really seriously like the example I want to set for my children, and I want them to see me, you know, building something that's sustainable and meaningful and has an impact on the world. And so, yeah, maybe this is an invitation to take that seriously and make some shifts.
Got it. So that last piece, right? Like, there was a lot of importance in whatever resonates with you the most, whether it's role model, whether it's walking my own talk, but that there's a lot of resonance in making sure that the integrity of, you know, my words, my desires, the things that I say that I want and express to my kids is also shown in both the actions and in like the tangible evidence of what I'm building. So, like,
Hmm.
is that accurate?
Hmm.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. So when you're looking at everything, um, this is more just to kind of summarize. If I'm looking at everything kind of in the big scope of what's going on, right? There's day to day, there are repetitions of very specific things that manifest as your business challenges right now. So, like, a lot of it is just the doing. And because I'm constantly busy and constantly doing, then I'm staying in this perpetual space where there's not really a lot of space for inspiration, for ease. I'm just constantly going around and doing the thing because fundamentally, right, I believe a lot of my value is in the output of the thing that I do. And I know that this is something that's been going on for a while, and it's only ever changed whenever crisis has actually hit, right?
Hmm.
The thoughts that seem to be like the narratives and the overall beliefs that seem to power this, right? They're going to come from a wide variety of different places, right? So that one of like what I think is possible is quite limited for myself, right? Like that one's come up multiple times. Um, not having the clarity or really like the embodied feel of like, well, who would I be if I wasn't this person? Because this person that's repeating these day-to-day patterns, there's a big part of like busyness equals importance. If I'm not important, I'm going to disappear. So under the lens of everything that I do, whether it's inspired or not, is a sense that I have to continue to work. Otherwise, I'm going to disappear. My significance is going to be disappearing. And I think your patterns really create more and more proof for that deeper part of yourself to reinforce that. Right. And even if I think of kind of quote unquote the obvious solutions like doubling my prices, right away there's a freak out moment where I just rationalize my way into, well, okay, well, why is that not really possible? Right. And I think that the feelings that power or result from these thoughts and power these actual actions. Um, Resentment came up quite a bit. The disappearance of like the passion that was originally there, and just a level of hardness, right? Which makes sense because if I'm constantly on a treadmill, eventually that's going to start to feel really hard, right? The longer that
Mhm.
you go. Um, so that to me, from the outside looking in, is kind of the landscape of what's powering what is on the surface, just a business ceiling of being at capacity, right?
Mhm.
One that's not really going to be fully solved by, more productivity, potentially even getting like VAs and help, etc. It's putting a band-aid on, like a big laceration. Like that's kind of what it feels like to me.
Mhm.
So I know that was a lot thrown your way, but what lands for you?
Yeah, that all makes sense and feels true. Um, I think, yeah, what you said at the end about some of these, I have looked at like, well, should I just get help, or like, should I just, um, some of these like more common suggestions maybe in the business world have never really felt resonant. I don't think it's just that I'm talking myself out of them. I think you're right that I know that there's this other pattern. And yeah, I think it is going to take some risk and maybe playing with that idea of um, importance and disappearing, and like trying to get really comfortable with that, and not, so that it's not just in the shadows, like operating, without my awareness. So yeah, I mean, the idea of like kind of letting go of that and doing work that feels like it's more about the quality or like energy behind it, feels that feels like a relief. And I have no doubt it would like open up more capacity for clarity and other wonderful work opportunities, and all those things. But I think I need to like really look at that and get comfortable with the idea first.
Yeah, I think that's, as I said before, great observation, great awareness. Because yeah, it is definitely going to be that tug of war between, well, I got to let go of a deep seated part of my identity, while then also making room to define, explore, and experience, well, what does this up level version of me look like? Right? What
Mm-hmm.
actions does she take? How does she think? What is her attitude towards work? What is her attitude towards help? What is her attitude towards clients? All of those things are going to meld together um, into it. And yeah, it's going to be that balance of awareness, courage, action, right? It's all going to fall into place there. So um, I want to be conscious of your time because you said you had a hard stop, but does that feel complete for you? Or is there still something left outstanding?
No, I feel like I have something I can grasp and like start to work with, or continue to work with. So yeah, I think that's been helpful. Thank you.
You're very welcome. And thank you for coming on and allowing others to witness you in this way. Because as I always say, it's not easy, and it's always commendable. And something that definitely comes up often, right? Like busyness is a good way to avoid the places we don't want to look, because it's like you
Hmm.
said, it's there's a narrative societally of it being a good thing. It seems like it's going to work, but it's like the opposite side of the coin of like doing nothing, right?
Hmm.
You can cover a lot of distance and not move forward, or you can just stay still and not move forward. Both kind of
Hmm.
get you in the same spot. So anyway, that's a
Hmm.
topic for a different day. But yeah, if you want to close us off and just let everybody know where it is that they can find you, who's the best person to find you, floor is yours for that.
Okay. Yeah, my website's awildnewwork.com. I'm on Instagram too at the same name. I work mostly with people who are sort of mid-career professionals, usually in like a corporate or nonprofit environment, who, like me, like know they want something else, but aren't really sure what that is. So yeah, it's all nature-based and sort of seasonally aligned. And yeah, I love what I do. And so this is helpful for me to sort of keep continuing to fine tune and gives myself some ease so that I can keep going in a good way and not burn out because I want to keep going.
Absolutely. I think it's definitely worthwhile to keep going. And there's a lot of goodness behind that. It just needs to be uncovered once again.
Yeah.
So yeah, I applaud you for that. And definitely we'll put all of your links and stuff in the show notes. So for everybody listening, thank you very much. And Megan, thank you very much for being on here.
Yeah.
And yeah, we'll see you all on the next one.